The yelling started before the sun came up. It shook the walls. It shook my bones. My hands that once baked bread and held babies, now trembled like dry leaves in the wind. My name is Beatrice Washington, but folks call me B. This is the story of how my heart broke. If you've ever felt pain so deep you couldn't breathe, keep listening. My son Caleb stood in my living room, screaming at me like I was a stranger. His words, sharp like knives. "It's our money now, Mama," he shouted. "We need it for the honeymoon." Beside him stood his new wife, Tiffany. Her smile was ice. Her eyes said she enjoyed this. They had emptied my bank account. All of it. My whole life gone with one cruel decision. This wasn't just theft. This was betrayal. This was my own child stabbing me through the trust one spent years building. And I was left standing in the ruins of everything I thought was safe. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief. I had worked my fingers to the bone, saved every penny, lived frugally for decades, all for a future I now saw vanishing before my eyes. My retirement, my security, my ability to simply exist in peace. All gone, swept away by the greed of my own son and the woman he brought into my life. I stumbled back, clutching the old armchair. The worn fabric, the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. The air crackled with a sick energy, thick with the smell of their ambition and my crushing heartbreak. This wasn't just a financial blow. It was a deeply personal wound, a violation of the quiet dignity I had always carried. "Mama, you don't understand," Caleb roared again, his words twisting the knife further. "It's a new life for us. A fresh start. You just need to stay here, clean the house, feed the dog, and for God's sake, don't touch the living room TV." His voice was dripping with condescension, treating me like a housemaid, a relic to be left behind while they gallivanted off on their ill-gotten luxury. Tiffany's small, tight smile confirmed it all. They had planned this meticulously, cruelly, down to the very last detail. It was a complete and utter dismissal of my worth, my love, my very existence. This was one of those betrayal stories that would make your skin crawl. A true example of cheating and deceit within a family. A strange calm, chillingly cold, began to settle over my fury. It wasn't surrender, no. It was the quiet, terrifying calm that comes before a true reckoning. I looked at Caleb, my son, the boy I had sacrificed everything for, and saw only a stranger, his eyes devoid of warmth, filled with an ugly, possessive glare. I saw the pure, unadulterated selfishness that had consumed him, fed by Tiffany's silent encouragement. This was no longer just about love stories gone wrong or mere marriage stories. It was about the dark core of human greed, exposed in its rawest, most painful form. Their words, their actions were the final straw, breaking something precious deep inside me but forging something new and hard in its place. The gentle mother, the always forgiving woman, she was gone. In her place, a quiet storm was brewing, a force they had foolishly unleashed. This wasn't just a moment of pain. It was the birth of a new purpose, a grandma revenge story that would echo through their lives. I didn't say a word, just watched them, my silence louder than any scream. This was going to be a sweet revenge short story. A grandmother takes revenge storytime voiceover that would unfold with a shocking twist. They thought they had one. They thought they had left me with nothing. But what they had truly done was awaken a strength they never knew existed within me. A fire that would consume their carefully built world. Get ready for one of the most fascinating moving tales you'll ever hear, because what happened next, what I did that very night, would teach them a lesson learned they would carry for the rest of their miserable lives. This was no ordinary relationship story. This was the birth of karma stories in real life. The fury from that confrontation, the fire in my veins, slowly started to cool, leaving behind a chilling, empty ache. But as the raw anger faded a bit, a different kind of pain surfaced. The crushing weight of all the years, all the sacrifices, that led me to this moment. This wasn't some sudden storm. It was the result of a slow, steady erosion, a dark family secret that had been festering for far too long. My life before Caleb's monstrous act was built on quiet strength and endless giving. My dear late husband, Samuel, God rest his soul, used to call me his pillar. He never knew how much pressure that pillar could withstand, or how completely it could shatter. I was the one who always found a way, working tirelessly, stretching every penny in our little house in the community of Evergreen, making sure Caleb had every chance, even when we had barely anything. I remember one Christmas Caleb was just a scrawny 10-year-old, his eyes wide with longing for a shiny new bike. We didn't have the money, not even close. But I couldn't bear to see his face fall. So I took on extra cleaning jobs at the big offices downtown, scrubbing floors until my back screamed and my hands ached. My body was exhausted, but the pure, unadulterated joy on his face when he saw that bike on Christmas morning? It made every single ache, every single hour of pain worth it. That's what I believed then. That's what mothers do. My closest friend Darlene, she always saw things clearer than me. She'd look at Caleb with a knowing gaze and then turn to me, her voice soft but firm. "B, you pour your very soul into that boy. He's going to grow up thinking the world owes him everything. Hand it to him on a silver platter." I just smile and wave her off, convinced that a mother's love was a boundless ocean, a well that could never ever run dry. Oh, how tragically wrong I was. Caleb, bless his heart, always had a special charm about him. A way with words that could smooth over any rough edge, talk his way out of any trouble. He was the golden child, the one everyone in our family, and even in Evergreen, praised and predicted would achieve great things. I truly deeply believed that his success would be my legacy, a quiet testament to my unending efforts. But as he grew older, small cracks started to appear in that perfect picture. Little acts of selfishness like forgetting to help with chores around the house slowly grew into bigger ones like borrowing money from my purse without asking, always with a disarming smile and a clever excuse. He'd spend it on flashy new gadgets or expensive outings with friends, always justifying it as networking or building his image. I always forgave him, always found an excuse. I recall a particularly painful time when Samuel was sick, his body failing, and the medical bills piled up like mountains. Caleb, who had just landed his first big, impressive job, promised to help, to shoulder some of the crushing burden. I waited. I hoped. I prayed. But the money, the promised help, never came. Instead, he showed up at the house in a brand new, gleaming luxury car, bragging about its features. He said he needed to look the part for his high-flying career, that it was an investment. And like always, like a foolish mother, I swallowed my doubts, choosing to believe in the best version of my son, pushing away the growing knot of unease in my stomach. It's one of those real-life stories where you see the signs, but you just don't want to believe them. Then Tiffany arrived on the scene. She was stunning, sharp, and seemed to wrap Caleb completely around her finger from the moment they met. First, I was delighted. She seemed respectful, attentive, almost like the daughter I never had. But then, slowly, subtly, things began to shift. My opinions became less important, my presence in their lives less welcome. They started making big decisions about the house, about my own future, without even a word to me. I remember overhearing Tiffany on a hushed phone call one afternoon, her voice low and conspiratorial, talking about future acquisitions and securing our position. I dismissed it, thinking it was just the excitement of wedding planning, the dreams of a young couple. But a cold, creeping dread began to coil in my gut, a tiny, insistent voice warning me that something was deeply, terribly wrong. It was a faint, almost imperceptible signal, a true story with a twist I tragically chose to ignore, a warning I failed to heed. And that failure would cost me everything. This was the moment the infidelity stories began, not of marriage but of loyalty. This was the silent, agonizing precursor to my absolute downfall. The sting of Caleb's words, the image of Tiffany's smug face. Those awful moments just played over and over in my mind, like a broken record. But as I sat there, the quiet of the house now feeling like a tomb, a cold, hard truth began to grow. This wasn't just a bad decision, or a moment of weakness from my son. No, this ugly thing, this stripping away of my life, it had been planned. For months. Maybe even longer. Little pieces of the puzzle, things that seemed small and unimportant at the time, started to click into place, painting a picture so dark, so evil it made my stomach churn. This wasn't just a simple act of infidelity stories from a son to a mother. This was a calculated war. First, there was Mr. Sterling, the money man Caleb pushed me to meet. He was all smiles and smooth words, promising to make my savings work harder for me, to put it all into one easy-to-handle account. Caleb swore up and down that Mr. Sterling was the best, the most honest. He told me, "Mama, he'll take care of everything, you won't have to worry." Now I see him for what he truly was. A wolf in a fancy suit helping them empty me out. My hard-earned money, my safety net, it was just numbers on a screen to them, easy to move around, easy to steal. This was part of a larger plan. A cold, hard betrayal story that was far more chilling than I could have ever imagined. Then I thought about Tiffany's constant help with my mail. Especially anything that looked like it came from the bank. "Let me just grab that for you, Mama B," she'd say, her voice sweet as sugar. Her hand already reaching for the letters before I could even see them. I was so trusting. So foolish. Why would I ever think to open my own bank statements when my son and his lovely new wife were helping me so much? I was blind. So very, very blind. My heart, full of love for them, kept me from seeing the ugly truth hiding in plain sight. This was a cheating game played by my own family. And the whispers. Oh, the whispers from around Evergreen. I'd heard them, faint at first, then growing louder. Little bits of gossip from the ladies at church, worried looks from old neighbors. Talk about Caleb and Tiffany living a life way bigger than they could afford. About them scheming to get ahead. Even my own cousin Florence gave me a strange, heavy look at our last family barbecue. She'd said, "B, you gotta watch your back, especially when money's involved. Family ain't always family, if you know what I mean." I just laughed it off, thinking it was just family drama. Nothing serious. Now those whispers felt like roaring alarms, loud signals I had stubbornly chosen to ignore. It makes you wonder about all the real life stories where people miss the signs until it's too late. The most painful discovery came when I remembered a specific talk with Caleb about my house. He had been pushing me so hard to put his name on the deed. "Just in case something happens to you, Mama," he'd say. "It'll be easier for you, for everyone." He said it was for my protection, to make sure everything was in order. I had pushed back, feeling uneasy, but he kept at it, gently, persistently, until I almost gave in. Now the chilling truth hit me like a ton of bricks. My home, my safe haven, the very walls that held my memories, were probably next on their hit list. They wanted it all. The air around me felt heavy, suffocating. The quiet house was no longer peaceful. It was filled with the mocking echoes of their lies, their cruel laughter. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was sick to my stomach, disgusted to my core. Betrayed by my own blood. Manipulated by a woman I had welcomed into my deepest trust. But with that deep disgust came a burning, white-hot resolve. The kind, gentle woman who always turned the other cheek, who always saw the good in people, she was gone. She was dead. In her place, a different bee was rising. A woman who was done staying silent. A grandma revenge story was about to begin. A story that would show them that an underestimated Black American grandmother had a fire inside her they had foolishly poked. They had no idea what was coming. This wasn't just about getting my money back. This was about justice. This was about a complete and utter sweet revenge short story. A grandmother takes revenge storytime voiceover that would change everything. The dread was building, twisting tighter in my gut, because I knew I had to act and act fast. The karma stories were just beginning to write themselves, and they were going to be brutal. My resolve hardened with every memory, every painful realization, pushing me closer to the edge, to the moment I would strike back. The days that followed were a blurry mess of pain, a living nightmare I couldn't escape. My heart felt like a shriveled, empty balloon sucked dry of all happiness. The house, once my cozy, safe place, now felt like a cold, echoing cave. Every step I took felt heavy, weighed down by Caleb's nasty words, by Tiffany's chilling fake smile. I kept seeing the empty spot in my mind where my life savings used to be. A giant hole that swallowed all my hope and peace. This wasn't just losing money. This was losing myself, piece by agonizing piece. I tried to eat, but the food tasted like ash, like bitter dirt. Sleep was no help at all. Awful dreams of being chased by shadows of betrayal grabbed me, making me jolt awake in the dark. My body ached all over, not just from being tired, but from the crushing weight of their terrible betrayal. I felt tiny, like no one could see me, like a ghost in my own home. My pride, my good name, everything I thought I was had been ripped away, leaving me raw, exposed, and completely alone. It was like living through one of those true story of resilience moments, but I was so deep in it, I couldn't see the light yet. I remember one night sitting alone in the dark, the only sound the soft whimpering of my loyal dog, Rusty, who seemed to know how much I hurt. A giant wave of sadness washed over me, so strong it felt like I was drowning. I just let the tears come, hot and fast, streaming down my face, wetting my old nightgown. I cried for the foolish woman I had been, for the mother who had given absolutely everything, for the future they had stolen right from under my nose. I asked myself over and over, was I that blind? That stupid? How could I have been such a fool? It was a moment of complete breakdown, a dark, lonely place where all I could do was hurt. The idea of just giving up, of walking away from everything and everyone, floated through my mind more than once. Just disappear. But then a tiny stubborn voice, a spark deep inside me, whispered, no, this wasn't just about the money they took. This was about getting back who I was. It was about proving to myself and to them that I wasn't just a quiet old woman they could throw away like trash. This was my survival story, and I wasn't going to let them write the ending. I had to find a way to make it a real-life story of victory, not defeat. One afternoon, rummaging through an old, dusty box of Samuel's things, I found his old journal. It was worn and faded, but opening it, I saw his neat, strong handwriting. Tucked inside between the yellowed pages was a faded picture of us, young and full of dreams, standing right in front of this very house. And underneath it, in his familiar, sturdy handwriting, just one line. "Be, you are stronger than you know." His words, so simple yet so powerful, hit me deep down like a gentle push from the past. They reminded me of the fighting spirit that ran in my blood, the strength passed down through generations of Black women who had faced worse storms and still stood tall, still found a way to thrive. It was a message from beyond, a hint of the karma stories that were yet to unfold. That very night, something shifted. Instead of crying, I started to write. I wrote down everything. Every single lie, every painful betrayal, every tiny warning I had foolishly ignored. My writing was messy, full of anger and hurt, but with every word, a tiny spark of defiance flickered and grew inside me. It wasn't just a journal. It was my secret weapon, my battle plan, my promise to myself. It was a quiet act of rebellion. A firm promise that this wasn't the end of my story. No, this was just the very bottom, the lowest point before I would start to rise. If you've ever felt completely broken, like everything has been taken from you, but you still found that one tiny spark of hope inside, then stick with me. Because what comes next is about getting back every single thing they tried to steal. It's an emotional video playing out in my mind. A true story with a twist that will surprise everyone. You'll see how a broken woman can rebuild from ashes, becoming stronger and wiser than before. As I kept putting the shattered pieces of my life back together, digging through old papers, remembering hushed talks, a new, much darker truth started to appear. The picture I had in my head, of Caleb and Tiffany acting alone, began to crack, then break apart completely. Another face, one I had always seen as kind, even helpless, started to show up in the shadows. The real bad guy, the one pulling the strings behind all my suffering, was not my charming son, or his sneaky wife. No, it was someone far more shocking, someone I had always felt sorry for. This was the real twist in my true story of resilience, a turn I never saw coming. It was Uncle Emmett, Samuel's younger brother. Emmett had always been the one with bad luck, always struggling with money, always asking for a handout. I had always felt so sad for him, often giving him what little I had, thinking I was helping him get back on his feet. But as I thought back to our talks, as I looked at old bank statements showing small, secret payments going out to a consulting firm that turned out to be Emmett's fake company, the story of his struggles started to look less like bad luck and more like a very clever play acting. He wasn't helpless. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, pretending to be weak while he plotted against me. This was a betrayal story far deeper than I had imagined. He had been whispering nasty ideas into Caleb's ear for years, planting seeds of greed, telling him how easy it would be to get my money, how old folks don't need all that much anyway. He had given Caleb the idea that it was his right, as the only son, to take what was mine. Emmett was also the one who introduced me to Mr. Sterling, the money man, swearing he was the most honest person he knew. It was Emmett who had been gently but constantly pushing Caleb to get his name on the house deed, saying it was just for convenience. He wasn't a poor relative needing help. He was a silent, dangerous snake, hiding in the family's shadow, waiting to strike. This felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal wrapped in false kindness. The truth about Emmett hit me like a physical blow. Far worse than anything Caleb had done directly. The feeling of being betrayed by Emmett felt colder, much more planned out, because it came wrapped in pity and fake niceness. But with that shock, a new sharp clarity cut through my pain. My anger changed, not getting smaller, but becoming sharper, like a laser beam focusing on its real target. My revenge would be aimed at the puppet master, not just the puppets. Just as this dark truth became crystal clear, a bright light appeared. My grandniece Simone, Samuel's sister's granddaughter, showed up at my door. Simone was smart, with a strong sense of what was right and wrong. She had always been a little distant from Caleb's new life with Tiffany. She'd heard little whispers too, about my sudden money troubles, and she just knew something was terribly wrong. She brought me a hidden flash drive, given to her by an old family friend who used to work for Mr. Sterling. On it were files, secret emails, even hushed recordings. Proof. Solid, undeniable proof of the whole evil plan. Showing Emmett's full involvement, Caleb's knowing part, and Tiffany's role in making it all happen. It was a true story with a twist that would shock everyone. The floodgates of truth burst open, and I saw the full, ugly picture of their treachery. But instead of falling into despair, I felt a calm, chilling power settle over me. I was no longer just a victim. I was a strategist. I started making phone calls, not to cry or complain, but to ask sharp questions to gather my forces. I was getting ready for justice, not out of blind rage, but with the steady, clear hands of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. And this time I was playing to win. This gentle grandmother was about to become a powerful force they never ever imagined. This was going to be a sweet revenge short story. A grandmother takes revenge storytime voiceover that would unfold with perfect precision. The karma stories were about to begin, and they wouldn't be pretty for them. I felt a surge of strength, knowing that my next moves would be bold, deliberate, and utterly devastating. I was no longer just surviving. I was preparing to dominate. The days of crying quietly were over. Gone. Finished. With Simone's solid proof and a fierce new fire in my belly, I started to move. My first call was to a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer named Ms. Olivia Vance. Simone had told me she was the best, a real fighter. Ms. Vance listened to every word I said, her eyes keen and steady, as I slowly laid out the ugly, twisted web of their betrayal. The bank papers, the chilling secret recordings, everything. Ms. Vance didn't look at me with pity. No. Her eyes held a hard, steely calm just like mine. "Mrs. Washington," she said, her voice firm and strong, "we have them dead to rights." She meant we had enough proof to win. The legal fight began quietly, like a silent, growing storm, far from the nosy eyes of Evergreen. Ms. Vance worked like a super-smart detective, sending out legal papers, freezing Caleb and Tiffany's bank accounts, and tracing every single penny of my stolen money. The legal papers landed on Caleb and Tiffany's doorstep like small, silent bombs. First they laughed, I heard. They thought it was just the desperate act of an old woman, a silly threat. But then their credit cards started getting declined. Their fancy dream honeymoon, I later found out, was cut short. Their big spending spree stopped dead in its tracks. The public shame had begun, not with shouting, but with quiet, undeniable money troubles. This was a sweet revenge short story starting to unfold, where money itself became the weapon. Next, I turned my attention to Emmett. Ms. Vance showed him all the proof of his money tricks, the fake companies, the money that went straight into his pockets. He tried to deny it, to charm his way out, just like always, but the pile of proof was too big, too clear. He was forced to give back all the money he had slowly, sneakily taken from me over the years, a lot more than the little bits I had given him out of pity. He even faced the chance of going to jail for his crimes, and the pure fear in his eyes? It was clear as day. The town had always seen him as a sad, unlucky man. Now they would see him for the greedy, tricky snake he truly was. This was a classic case of karma stories playing out. I also took back my house officially. With the legal papers and the proof that Caleb had tried to illegally put his name on my home, the house was fully mine again. I changed every lock, put in a fancy new security system, and put up a big no trespassing sign with a message clear as day. This was my safe place, and it was closed forever to those who tried to use me or hurt me. It was a reclaiming of my space, my peace, my true story of resilience. The biggest blow, though, came when Ms. Vance bravely told Caleb and Tiffany's bosses about all their lies and how they had stolen from me. Caleb with his big-shot finance job and Tiffany with her important role at a local charity. Their world came crashing down. The details of their greed, how they had stolen from their own family, an old parent no less, spread like wildfire. Caleb lost his important money licenses and couldn't work in his field anymore. Both of them lost their jobs, their fancy titles gone. The people in the community who once admired them now looked at them with disgust, with cold, judging eyes. Social shame, slow and heavy, became their everyday punishment. They were living their own betrayal stories, but from the other side now. I heard through Simone that Caleb was in a full-blown panic, calling everyone he knew, trying to borrow money, but every door was slammed shut in his face. Tiffany, I heard, was furious, yelling and blaming Caleb for everything. Their perfect, charmed life was falling apart, piece by painful piece. For the very first time I heard that Caleb was truly scared. Not angry, not proud, but pure raw fear. He had made a huge mistake, he had thought I was weak, and now he was facing the consequences he never ever thought would come. The reckoning had begun, and it was far from over. This wasn't just justice. This was the brutal, undeniable truth of what happens when you awaken a sleeping giant. The family revenge stories had officially started, and I was just getting warmed up. The final showdown wasn't some shouting match in a courtroom, even though the quiet power of legal papers had paved the way. No, it happened at the big Evergreen Heritage Ball and fancy party I used to go to with Samuel for years, but had stayed away from since the awful day they took everything. This time, though, I walked in, my head held high, Simone on one arm, Ms. Vance on the other, wearing my best, deepest blue dress. A wave of shocked quiet rolled through the fancy room the moment I stepped inside. People stared, curious, a little nervous, and then a slow understanding began to spread across their faces. This was no ordinary night. It was the climax of a long, painful true story of resilience. Caleb and Tiffany were there, trying to act normal, trying to hide in the crowd, but their fake smiles and twitching eyes gave away how scared and worried they truly were. Emmett was nowhere to be seen. He had run away from Evergreen after the police started looking for him, swallowed by his own shame and fear. The air in the big room felt thick like electricity. Everyone could feel that something huge was about to happen. My heart hammered, not from fear, but from the cold, hard excitement of what was coming. This was the moment for karma stories to truly play out. Halfway through the evening, after the boring, long speech from the town's leader, Ms. Vance stepped forward. Her voice cut through the soft murmurs, clear and strong. She didn't yell, she didn't point fingers. Instead, she just calmly, clearly announced all the good news about my money being returned, my big win in court. She spoke about how important it is to protect older people, to make sure justice is served in our town. Then, very carefully, she shared the plain truth about the fraud, explaining how all my life savings had been stolen, and how my own house had almost been taken right from under me. She didn't say any names out loud, but the details were so clear, so exact, that everyone in that room knew exactly who she was talking about. And then the biggest blow of all. She played a simple, clear sound recording, quietly but powerfully, over the room's speakers. It was Caleb's voice, talking chillingly about how to handle his old lady's money, followed by Tiffany's cold, calculating agreement, and then Emmett's unmistakable, gravelly laugh. The whole room fell into a shocking dead silence. You could have heard a tiny pin drop. Caleb's face turned ghostly white, then bright red with shame. Tiffany's eyes, usually so bright with fake charm, grew wide with pure panic. Every ugly truth, every secret dark family secret, was laid bare, not by my anger, but by the cold, hard proof. The stolen money, the shame of being exposed in front of everyone, the old secrets of Emmett's mean tricks. All of it was out in the open for the whole community to see. It was a real-life story unfolding right before their eyes, a raw, undeniable scene from one of the most painful betrayal stories ever told. I stepped forward then, my voice calm, full of hard-earned wisdom, full of quiet dignity. I looked straight at Caleb and Tiffany. Not with hate, no. With a deep, almost crushing pity. "My son," I said, my voice steady like a rock. "You chose easy money over family, quick comfort over true character. You chose to empty not just my bank account, but the very soul inside you." To Tiffany I just said, my eyes holding hers. "You chose a path of lies and trickery. I hope one day you find your way back to honor, to truth." My words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, a lesson learned for all to hear. The power in that room changed completely. The quiet, gentle woman who had been seen as a victim now owned the whole space. People who used to whisper about me, about how I was too trusting, now looked at me with deep respect, with pure admiration, even awe. Caleb and Tiffany, stripped bare of all their fake charm, looked tiny, defeated, trapped in their own shame. They tried to leave, to slip away, but the eyes of everyone in the community, now filled with judgment, held them in place like a silent, invisible cage. It was a complete and total reversal, the kind you read about in revenge stories. I turned and walked away then, not running, not trying to escape, but walking slowly, with calm grace. Stronger, yes, but also lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The crushing burden of their betrayal was finally gone. I was alone in that moment, but I was at last truly free. The taste of victory wasn't sweet like candy or bitter like medicine. It was simply clean. My good name, my spirit, had been taken back, whole and clean. Years have passed since that electrifying night at the Evergreen Heritage Ball. Time has a way of smoothing out the roughest edges, much like the steady flow of the river carving away its stone. The dust has settled, the deepest wounds have healed into scars, and the lessons, for both me and for them, have become crystal clear. I didn't just rebuild my life. I built a brand new one, stronger and more beautiful than before, not just with money, but with my heart and soul. I took back my name, Beatrice Washington, not just as a label on a mailbox, but as a living symbol of what it means to be truly strong. I put my money back to work wisely with a new financial advisor I trusted completely. I even helped start a lively community center in Evergreen, a place for people to grow, to learn, to help each other. It's a beautiful reminder that new life can blossom from the darkest times. This is the true story of resilience, played out in every brick of that building. Caleb and Tiffany? Their story didn't end with happiness or learning. They struggled hard. The shame of being exposed in public, the terrible loss of their good jobs, the crushing piles of debt from all the lawsuits. It all pulled them apart. I heard they eventually got a divorce, their bond completely broken by their shared greed, and the bitter taste of losing everything. Caleb tried to reach out once, years later, a quiet email with simple, almost empty apologies. I read it. I acknowledged it. But I didn't write back. Some lessons I've learned are best learned alone, in the quiet, painful aftermath of your own choices. Emmett, I heard, just disappeared. He moved far, far away, a shadow of the man he used to pretend to be, living a lonely life trapped by his own bad deeds. It's a sad ending to their real-life stories, but a powerful one for me. Simone, my amazing grandniece, became my rock, my true family. She's doing great in law school now, and she tells me she was inspired by Ms. Vance, but even more so by my fight. She visits often, and her bright, happy laughter fills my home with a joy that feels pure and clean, untouched by the shadows of the past. She's proof that good can come from bad. A truly heartwarming story in itself. My life now isn't about getting even or holding on to anger. It's about peace. It's about understanding, deep down in my bones, that simply living through a hard time isn't enough. Survival isn't just breathing. It's choosing to value yourself, to stand tall, every single day. It's about knowing that real wealth isn't in a bank account or fancy cars, but in the honesty of your spirit, the unbreakable strength of your character, and the rock-solid belief in your own worth. I am a survivor, yes, but even more than that, I am a thriver. I am a woman who, when faced with the deepest, most painful betrayal stories, chose, without a single doubt, to rise. This is not just an audio story, it's a narrated life story, a fascinating moving tale that I hope gives you strength. The past doesn't control me anymore. I walk forward, head held high, knowing that every challenge I faced made me who I am today. Strong, wise, and filled with a quiet power. This journey from utter devastation to profound peace is my motivational tale, an exciting narrative of reclaiming what was stolen. It's a reminder that even when things are darkest, you can find your light. It's a true story with a twist, because the twist wasn't just about them losing. It was about me truly winning on my own terms. It's the ultimate lessons learned video, an emotional video told from the heart. My journey shows that even after the deepest cuts, healing is possible, and a brighter future awaits. If you are a survivor, if you have faced moments where it felt like everything was ripped away from you, if you have had to fight with every fiber of your being for your peace and to get back your true self, then please know this, your story matters too. You are stronger than you can possibly imagine. Don't ever let anyone dim your light or tell you that you are less than you are. Subscribe now and join a community of strength, of shared journeys. Your story matters too. This isn't just my storytime voiceover. It's an invitation to find your own strength, to be inspired by moral stories that remind us of the power of the human spirit.